I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will call the meeting to order. And we'll have public discussion. Is there anybody here for public discussion? Mr. Casey.
Yes, I'd just like to make a comment. I was sitting on that board for 4 years, and you got my spot. Hopefully you back these people like I did for their safety and everything. Because now I'm one of them. I'm about half, 3/4 miles from that pipeline. So I just hope you're a man of your word. Like you said, you're gonna stick up for the people, and you take care of these people. They're the ones that got you in. That's all I gotta say.
Yep, you bet.
Anybody else here for public discussion? Can't see behind the pole, but
I don't see any hands.
if not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda and minutes dated February 7th?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Wachter, second by
I'll second.
Nance. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Are the road foremen coming up today?
I think so. I haven't heard that they're not.
Should we go ahead with Kossuth Regional?
Sure.
We'll go ahead with Kossuth Regional update.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Just gonna give a couple updates on what's going on at, Kossuth Regional Health Center. For the month of December, we did end up seeing an operating loss of 1.28%. We did have really high patient volumes again in December, and we're still seeing them now. It's just really becoming very consistent on what we're seeing up on the third floor, not in terms of any one sort of sickness, but we're really just seeing a lot more people being sick for longer periods of time. So, you know, some days having as many as 22 inpatients on our third floor, when for the most part in previous years we would run about 13. So looking really high there. Kind of in terms of that operating loss, really just a lot of that is salaries. Really it's gonna take time for the market to be back in line with what we can charge to our patients, and then just because since we're Medicare reimbursed, it's gonna take about a year or so for our reimbursement to kind of line up with our costs. Working to get our fiscal year 24 budget put together. Right now, looking at about a 2.5% operating loss. Still tweaking that a little bit, and then of course our tax apportionment could end up with a change. So a couple other things going on. We did bring on a contracted echo tech to perform echo scans. That's been a role we've been trying to recruit for several years now. So it is great that we have someone to perform those scans so that we don't have to send those out. He is, contracted, so, you know, definitely paying a double the price of someone that we could bring on our own, and he is here for just 4 months, so the goal is to try and keep him here or to try and bring one on in the meantime. Another project that we're working on now is we are going to open up a durable medical equipment store within our hospital. It is a joint venture with Mercy One. So that will be a storefront shop, to get some, you know, your pumps, your CPAPs and those sort of things. So that's going to replace, the loss that we had in this town. I think in the last year, I think the business was called Arrow Care. That was here in town, that had closed here in the last year. So looking to open up that storefront hopefully in July. So, that'll be great for all of our patients. Any questions for me?
No, I just looking through it, your debt service coverage is adequate and your births are up again. So
Birds, yeah. It's
everything
been-
looks pretty good, surgicals look good.
Yep, yeah, the births have been pretty consistent and.
Yep.
Yeah, I think our doctors get a little exhausted of them sometimes, but definitely good that people are choosing to give birth here in town.
The emergency room visits, they're not going down either.
No, they're not. Our ER is just getting busier and busier. Our doctors work on call overnight, and it's really becoming less of on call and really just becoming a shift. It's really packed there.
Yeah. No, everything looks good. Just turn it into a profit.
That's right. Yep, that's the goal.
Any other questions, comments?
All right.
If not, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks,
everyone.
you too.
We have a monthly update from the road foremans, and you got the temporary road foreman there.
Yeah,
with
good
you.
morning. I don't know if Carter and Josh have had an opportunity to meet our road foreman yet. I think last month we had a snow event, so we had to cancel that meeting. But Scott Ziesman over here, Josh Wachter, and Carter Naya, Scott, kind of the south portion of the roads, and then we got Brian Blair, he's our assistant foreman. Brian works out of Sway City. Bill Marin is on vacation today. Bill works out of Bancroft, so we will get him in the next meeting, so.
Roads are gonna get soft.
Yeah, so we don't need to serve
No.
our grain, it'd be good.
Yeah.
It's too early for a hard rain.
Well, we really don't need rain right now. We
Unless
need
it's gonna
frost.
thaw, so.
I had good comments this week from, people who's, of course, the roads were bad in the past couple weeks, you know, getting there and just doing what you can to take care of things. People appreciated that, so I had a couple reach out to me, so thank you.
We've had a lot of situations, people, hauling grain, some of the hog facilities, hauling feed and, different things like that, but yesterday when I was out driving, I thought, everything, the roads that I drove on, were able to be passed.
I do think it helped to blade the humps off.
Yeah.
You didn't have water setting in them.
Oh, yeah, just level them off and.
Any questions for the foreman?
I got your number.
Good enough, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have some handwritten claims, one,
From the county attorney's office, $150. Should be in your packet.
it was in our packet. Is there a motion to approve the handwritten claim?
I'll make the motion.
Carter, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Wactor? Any questions on it or any comments? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. You gonna get me a new stamper?
Yeah, they've ordered it, so it shows. Does everybody have to sign on the bottom one?
It's the cover letter. It was in the way.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is to approve probationary pay raise for housekeeping. That would be Deb.
Yeah, so she's been here 6 months now, so we'd like to move her up to $16 an hour and then approve, her 1 year, which will be in July, to put her up to $17 an hour. And then she'll be caught up for her probationary period, so, I would ask for approval of both of those steps, one that will take effect immediately, the other one in July.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Wactor. Do I have a second? Second by Jack. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda, we have furnace. Was one of the, oh, there's Willie.
Yeah, the one quote is in your packets, and the other quote the gentleman brought in this morning should be in your yellow envelope.
Looks like L1 Plumbing, I'd make a motion to accept L1 Plumbing's bid of $15,503.
Mr. Plath has made a motion to accept the lowest bid. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Nat. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got just one little point here to bring up. Why did we go out of town to get that second bid?
Where are you from, Mr. Swift, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I'm Jeff Swift. I'm from Emmitsburg, Iowa.
Your kids go to Garrigan?
Yep.
Oh, that's alright, that's where I know.
Yep,
Okay,
yep. I have 3 there now. My oldest one graduated last year from Garrigan, but I live in Emmitsburg. So yeah, I live in Palo Alto County.
I guess either way,
I mean,
either way, I guess
explain, I mean, I got a phone call Friday asking if I would look at it. So, I called
Me.
Willie yesterday, and he said he'd let me take a look at it, it was fine. I just put a price together, I guess.
This ain't nothing against him by no means. This goes back, we got our rear ends handed to us for going out of the county to have business done. And now we have somebody doing it right here in front of us.
Well, I guess regardless, there's about a $5,000 difference in the bids.
Yeah, like I said, I've had Swift do other stuff here.
Yeah.
That's not the point at all. It ain't nothing against Swift.
No, not at all.
I guess his point is you're trying to be consistent and keep the bids within the county. Why did you go out of the county?
I guess I didn't get this bid.
Is Kyle online?
Is Kyle online? Did he do it?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess Kyle, the question is why'd you go out of the county for a bid when, you know, we got reprimanded for going out of the county for a bid on other things, so.
I did check with another, company that does plumbing, heating stuff here in the county. They said this was above their, skill set or expertise, lack of a better term, and recommended the other company, which is obviously Swift, and I reached them, so I figured it, at bare minimum, it is worth, investigating the other option. And I think in regards to consistency, I thought it would have been fairly clear that we should be looking for multiple prices from previous encounters, but there was only one presented to us last week, so that's what I was looking for as a comparable.
And excuse me.
Go ahead.
Can I say something? You know, I don't know what the other unit was bid or anything, so I just picked the brands I usually pick. You know, Johnson Controls, York, or American Standard. Train is what I usually sell. Train is usually towards the higher end, but you guys probably know that because you put some on over across the street. They're well-made unit. I would, there's a couple options I had on there for, economizer, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it brings in outside air for a facility for free cooling to save you money on the utilities that way. And then I had an ad on there for an air scrubber that kills viruses and bacteria and things of that nature, since it is an emergency management facility, something to look at, but I'm not getting the bid, so I just figured I'd throw those out there just for consideration for you folks.
Thank you for your bid.
No problem.
Appreciate you coming in.
All right.
Yeah, Willie, you got anything else?
Nope.
If not, we will go to our next,
No,
We gotta,
vote.
oh, we gotta vote yet. Do I have
we already have a
Can you
motion
guys
we have a motion and a second on the floor?
difference or whatever, cause I obviously don't have that in front of me. I thought I heard Carter say it was about $5,000 difference, is that correct?
The bid from Algona Plumbing and Heating was $15,503, and the bid from Swift Air was $20,550.
Did you get that, Kyle?
Did you get that?
I heard the numbers.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Then we'll go back to, any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed? Kyle, did you voted no or yes?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you, guys. Next, approval of grant funds to be used on the 2023 Suburban. Phil?
That's me. So the new Suburban purchase was paid for through grant dollars. That grant dollars that we received for the purchase of that vehicle was $70,000. The purchase price of the vehicle was $54,000. So we have, a little shy of $16,000 left of the grant funds, which was designated for the upfitting of the vehicle, which is the lights, the siren. We have to put in a partition between the front and the back. So for hauling these mental health patients, they're separated from the driver's compartment. So that total upfit package, which I included a copy of that in your packet, comes to a total of $16,127. So it'll be just couple $100 over what's available in the grant funds, and then there's room in my budget to absorb that, final few dollars to complete this. I'd rather be a little over in the cost than under and have to do a grant report and return funds back to the grant company, so it's easier to be over. Like I say, no expense to the county. This is the grant dollars that we received for the vehicle, and the upfitting was included in that cost. We have not done a budget amendment for that yet, because that grant money was received last fiscal year.
So where's the money sitting right now
It's probably just sitting
in general basic? Okay.
So we do.
So we don't, if it's coming out of general basic, we're gonna have to do a budget amendment then? Okay.
And we can do that when we do the other budget amendment at the same time, so it's nothing we need to do right away.
We can do it, we'll be doing that one in April or May.
Just make sure you file for budget amendment then.
Right.
So Phil, because I have to audit the federal grants, you said that grant does include the outfitting of the vehicle as well as the purchase price?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that's, I don't believe that's considered a federal grant.
Is it a state grant? Is it a state grant?
It's a state grant,
Yeah, it's a
came
state
from the
grant.
state.
Okay, alright,
Yeah.
thank you.
I heard it came from social services,
National Care Connect, that's North Iowa.
community action. Does everybody understand what Phil's doing?
Yep.
Do I have a motion to approve the use of grant funds to be used to upfit the Suburban? Motion by Plath, second by Carter.
I'll second.
Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Stecker, you vote?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. Motion's unanimous. You're still up, Phil. Discussion of credit cards for Kossuth County EMS.
Credit cards, so currently, the EMS department does not have credit cards. We do have a credit card in each ambulance. And what we use those for is if we get out on a transfer, those transfers, we end up going to Omaha, Iowa City, Rochester. Most of those transfers we're not able to make it back home again, on one tank of fuel. So, that's the main reason we have the, cards in the ambulances is for that reason. And also if we take a transfer during a snowstorm or something, then we know we can get the patient to where we need to go and we cannot get back. We have the ability to put our staff up in a motel, so they're not out in the road trying to get back. It's nothing that we need to, have immediately, but as these things come up, I just thought I would, if he's on the agenda, and at least have a discussion, so we're not trying to do everything at the very end. It'd be nice to have one in place. We did the EMS day here last Saturday. I spent $300 and some odd out of my own pocket to put that event together. Just be nice to have the ability to use one.
We don't have the fund yet for it, do we? You got one set up for EMS?
Well, it depends what he purchases. It would go under one of, if he uses it to purchase equipment, it would fall under that. If he uses it to purchase, that's how, and yes, we have his budget set up pretty much.
Do you?
Like I say, it's stuff we have to do right away. It's just, I know we have 2 things already for next week's agenda that came up recently, but
So we
There's no
can't
money.
issue a credit card unless we have a fund to pay for it out
Yeah,
of.
and there'll be funds, there's just no
Yeah.
money until the.
yeah, whatever's spent on those will come out of my account.
Okay,
I'll do a claims report just like we do now, and it'll come out of my budget. Would not come out of any other funds other than my funds.
I wanna specify that it can be only used for fuel, lodging, and special event needs. No food or Anything else?
The credit card, we're just issuing one right now. I don't think we wanna issue the 7 until we have money and an account set up and everything.
If we get one now and then add cards to that same account when we get closer to that July 1 day would be
Right.
great.
But you're gonna have to bring it up again.
Okay.
Yeah. So this will just be one
To approve
card,
the one.
right? To be used for,
Fuel, lodging, maybe,
training,
special meeting, training or something.
Training.
No, like exclude food and all that kind of stuff.
okay. Is that your motion, Jack?
Yeah.
Okay, have a motion by Plath. Second by
I'll second.
Wactor. Any more discussion? Hearing
Can
none.
you repeat what the motion is?
Sure, motion by Plath and second by Wactor to approve one credit card for Kossuth County EMS to be used for fuel, lodging, special meetings, training, but excludes food and other uses. Charges, okay, and other charges.
You fine with that, Kyle?
Yeah,
Alright, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think Kyle voted yes.
I heard a lie.
Motion carried unanimous. Next thing on the agenda, you're still here, Phil.
Still here.
Yep, EMS should apply for the governor's Empower Rural America Incentive Pilot Program.
So the reason I put this on the agenda is it's fresh in everybody's mind. This was just held last Wednesday. Part of the grant process states that if we're interested in continuing with this process, we have to do a pre-application deadline of March 1st. So that's, about 2 weeks out that we have to have that part of the application completed. So I wanted to get it on the agenda to get you guys' feeling if we want to proceed on this or not. I can see some opportunity within the program. I also have a lot of concerns with how the program is set up and how it's.
One question I'd have, are you gonna administer? Or do you have the time to administer? It's gonna take time.
That's a big concern. We have a lot going on in the next 4 months to add.
The other concern I have is with the possible changes in the state, reducing the amount of taxes that can be raised. I don't know, at this time, if we need to try to come up with another $25,000, and then down the future, we may have to come up with another 100,000 just to keep the thing running. How many towns currently have first responders?
So currently we have 2 communities in Kossuth County, not counting the unincorporated areas like Irvington and St. Joe. But we have 2 communities that have no response, that being Ledyard and Laverne. They don't have any response in those 2 communities at all. I can see a benefit for those of having some kind of first response. And also in some of these communities that don't have staff available during the day because they work out of the community during the daytime. They're okay at night but don't have the response, so we'll put a first response there. I think in the program when he said, possible of 30 people, I think that's a far reach to what's really gonna be in reality of what we can put together for $50,000. Just the equipment in the bag, I'm thinking $3-4 grand just to have that in place per person. And we're gonna have to have some kind of training. I don't know what the cost of that's gonna be. The idea was, we could do training in-house. Since I started here doing EMS, we added on a medical death investigator. We're handling that. I don't know how much I can keep taking on and continue to do things well. I don't wanna do a bunch of things okay. I would rather do what needs to be done and do it well. So that's a concern to me is.
Well, then you said it also would be every 2 years you have to go through and retrain or.
These people that we put out in these small areas, they may go 3 months and not have a call to respond to. I think to do this program right, we're gonna have to have continuing education on a quarterly basis. We can't just go 2 years and expect them to remember what we showed them 2 years ago, and they never had a hands-on experience in that 2-year time period. I think the training is gonna be more intense than that, where we're gonna have to come back every 2 years. Also concerning is, if we train these people, they do something in the field that's may cause further damage to that patient, who's liable? I know that Lieutenant Governor talked about the Good Samaritan Act. I question that, because we're the ones that provided the training. How far is this Good Samaritan Act gonna go? I think there's a lot of steps to this to look at if we wanna continue it. I guess today the concern is, do we wanna continue the pre-application process? The full application is due May 1st. That would give us the next 2 months to determine, can we secure the funding, the match to go with this? Do we wanna pursue this in Kossuth County as one of the 2 original programs in the state? Or do we wanna step back and say, okay, we'll see how this goes and step in next year?
Well, for me, I think we need to wait and see if the state passes this new.
If we put $75,000 of the equipment in Kossuth County, who's going to pay to update and upkeep that equipment next year if the grant money's gone? It's gonna come into my budget, and I don't wanna have to cut staffing because now we're trying to maintain equipment.
I guess that's I think it's a, very high potential opportunity. Oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity on the table here, and I would suggest, or I would highlight the biggest thing we have to worry about today is the pre-application, and like Phil highlighted, if we move forward with that, it would allow us 2 months to spend more time and research and more discussions and actually figure out how this would work, or what the pros and cons all are. From the presentation we had from the Lieutenant Governor, I feel there's a lot of potential here, and I think we could have this be a successful EMS system in our county. So I would support moving forward the pre-application.
At the present time, I think we're better off to let another county be the guinea pig and see how it works in other counties before we spend a lot of money in Kossuth County.
Well, we're not obligating money right now, we're just doing the pre-app to get us, in that start process. We have 2 months to kind of figure out where we stand, budget wise and things like that, and, if there may be more potential for help from the state as well. And they also stated that, the other 25,000 doesn't have to come from the county, it's a community thing, they wanna see more people from the community, such as businesses and other entities, possibly pitch in to it too, so.
I think you were listening to Phil, he is concerned about time and commitment on his part.
You're concerned with the sustainability of it in the future, is that correct?
Well, even starting it.
Or even starting.
I guess-
if you do start it, who take?
I guess the option would be is if the state does not continue to fund this in the future, we have equipment that we're not gonna be able to continue to maintain and leave in these communities. Either the community's gonna have to step up and pay to support that, or we donate the equipment that we purchase to schools, to businesses, to community groups, around the county, and have these defibs in place around the county. I mean, there's options that we can do with that equipment.
I guess.
And that's a good point, all because if we do move forward with this and the grant program only goes off 1 year, we would have a potential of X number of dollars worth of equipment that would be our property, so we could use that in many forms or facets moving forward, so.
We did just have an EMS levy in
Yeah.
for the $1.2 million or however much, I guess. For purchasing equipment, is that not enough included in any of the funding that we'll get each year to supply what we need?
According to Phil's budget, it's pretty minimal,
It's pretty minimal, yeah.
Right.
That's,
so,
And until we actually have numbers, it would be a guess at projecting what future costs would be.
I hate to take on projects and not do it right.
The concern with the pilot program is, this is a pilot program that either two communities or two counties is going to be doing for the whole state of Iowa. The whole state of Iowa is gonna be watching these two communities to build this program. Carter, I don't think you were at the meeting with Lieutenant Governor, but as the Lieutenant Governor said, they have no directions or they have no guidelines for us. We have to develop everything. We have to develop the training. There is no training in place. We have to develop how to implement this, how to support it, how to carry it forward. We have no guidelines from the state other than, here's an idea, see how you can build it and make it work in rural Iowa, based off a program that's being run in Israel that has a population base of 1,000 people per square mile. We're gonna incorporate that into a county that has a population base of 5, 6 people per square mile.
Yeah.
So and I'm not trying to downgrade his program, it does have potential. It's how much time is it gonna take to implement that and do it well so other counties can benefit from it in the future.
that, plus we're still in the infancy of our trying to develop our current countywide EMS system. We don't even have that
Right,
all in place
have-
yet.
There's a lot to do in the
There's
next
a lot, we
4
have a
months.
long ways to go just to get that, wrinkles ironed out with that, and this is just throw another layer on top of that, and I just don't think Phil would have the time, to throw another layer on top of what he's already doing.
I think I'd rather you spend your time
There's
doing
Two
well,
things I would,
Hang on,
rather spend your time doing
in regards to
something well
time,
to get our current project up and running. And then we can look into stuff like this to,
If there's concern amongst the board on, whether we should do this and we want to extend our time to make a final decision by 2 months, I can do the pre-app. I'm not saying I can't do the pre-app, I will do the pre-app, we'll get that done. That will buy us 2 months' time. Another part of this system was, and Derek's here, they presented, by the Lieutenant Governor, that we had to demo these 4 companies' systems before March 1st. That gives me 2 weeks to demo 4 companies' apps that they're gonna use for dispatching these citizens. Run it by Derek and dispatch to make sure it works with our console to be able to communicate with dispatch. I don't know if I have 2 weeks right now to totally step back from EMS and try to implement even a pre-application. So if we're gonna proceed with that, I would really support that somebody's gonna have to help me get through these
Well,
processes.
and like I mentioned to the governor, this still doesn't answer the question for making EMS an essential service. The state made us do it ourselves, and they're still not willing to, I told Isaiah, this is, the best thing you do for us would be to give us $1 million to put into EMS to help us hire EMTs and pay your salary, buy ambulances, and he admitted, yeah, this isn't gonna help buy ambulances by any means.
Right, two $50,000 grants that we have to match with 25,000 isn't a lot in the whole scheme of EMS in the state of Iowa.
Again, we don't know what the state's gonna do with this new, files, we might,
so, we kinda talked this to death already, so I would make a motion that we do not
hey,
go into the
Kyle
program.
wants to say something here.
Well, I got a motion on the floor, do I have a second?
I'll second your motion.
We have a motion and a second not to go into the EMS program. Kyle, you got some comment?
Yeah, and I think it's the owl, but if you guys are talking, it will not allow me to, so I think that's why it's cutting out on that side, but I'd have two things in regards to the time frame or the time it would take for Phil. And the first one would be, I think if the time he has available is an issue, I think we would changing things on the medical investigator side, free up some of his time in that regard. And then also in the plan for the EMS budget, there is another administrator planned and budgeted. So that was already built into that plan going forward. So I feel this would fit hand in hand. I don't know exactly what kind of time frame commitment it would take, but I feel we'd be passing up a substantial opportunity by not moving forward. And at least the pre-applications, it does not tie our hands in any regard. So I would like to see us move forward with the pre-application and do more evaluating and more discussions over the next 2 months.
Call for a roll call vote.
Roll call vote, please.
Plath,
No, or yes,
Yes.
not to.
not to move forward, okay. Nath,
Yes.
Wactor,
No.
Stecker,
No,
Jerks.
Yes. Motion carried, 3-2. Thank you, Phil. I think we were done with you now.
I think so. So, budget.
Doug Miller. You wanna call Doug?
Do you want to,
101,
do you want to just give me a holler when it's getting closer to my budget stuff?
yeah, I can do that. Did you have a chance to look at it this
I
week?
did, I tried to catch yesterday, but you were over at the election center.
Yeah, yeah.
The only thing I
Trying to get ready
have
for
question on
Hey,
is the.
we are up to you.
ARPA money.
That can't be in there according to Elizabeth. So it has to be, because we've already received it, we can't put it as revenue.
We just
again.
do a transfer in with that?
Or we'll have to do it later, but it can't be listed under revenue because we've already received it.
Gotcha.
So,
That was the only question I had, everything else looked good.
yeah.
Doug tell you that James Lambert called up first time to my planning and zoning people. He told me to.
No, you never said anything.
Okay. He was supposed to add that to the motion,
And everybody's.
the stinker.
He was gone on Friday, so.
Is he?
He's on his way up.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning, Doug. First thing is planning and zoning. Appoint Steve, and we didn't get Jim on. Eldorfer in with Steve, or,
I have a motion to approve both of them.
do you? Okay.
Yes. It should be in your,
Both to the planning and zoning commission.
yeah.
Yes.
It might be in his packet. I think.
Here's just a location map, provided originally in 2021 showing the three members of where they're located in Kossuth County. So I just updated that to show where Jim and Steve are located. In your electronic folder there's a motion to approve Steve Strucker of West Bend, Iowa to the Kossuth County Planning and Zoning Commission. And there's another motion to approve and appoint Jim Heldorfer of Bancroft, Iowa to the Kossuth County Planning and Zoning Commission. So there's
Yeah, I got it.
two separate motions.
Yep.
I'll make the motion to appoint Steve Stricker to planning and zoning commission.
Why don't you make a motion to do both of them?
Or I'll make a motion to appoint Steve
Do you need
Stricker,
separate
well,
ones
he
then?
needed a separate
Do
motion.
you need a separate one?
It does not matter to me. I prepared it as two motions.
Okay,
and
we'll
certainly,
do two.
however you would like to choose.
Yeah, we'll do two. Okay, Mr. Knapp, you said for Steve?
Yep.
I'll second your motion. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. I didn't hear him.
I'll make a motion to appoint Heldorfer to the commission.
I have a motion on the floor to appoint James Heldorfer. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Nat. Any discussion?
That was me.
Oh, is that Wactor? You gotta talk louder. Any discussion? Hearing none, all
I
those in
guess I
favor?
would just say Jim is in the room right there,
Right.
so he is present. I don't know, thank you for
Yes, thank you.
your interest, Jim.
And his wife is even with him for moral support. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And thank you, Jim,
You're welcome.
for volunteering.
And Kyle did say yes for both.
You did,
Did he?
Yeah.
thank you.
We, have planning our, zoning,
Pardon me?
Construction.
construction in the road right away, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
okay. We have two requests, one from Iowa Lakes Electric Cooperative and one from BevCom. I'll do the Iowa Electric, Light and Power, or Iowa Lakes Electric Cooperative. They have two separate, permits. We've combined them into one motion. The first would be on 120th Avenue. They need to, they're replacing a single phase to a three-phase. They're gonna be boring underneath of, the plan is to bore under 480th Street, 470th Street, and 120 Avenue, and then A21 to service a house there, a building site. And then their second one is to reconstruct or some of their power line right south of Ledyard, which would be on 450th Street. And I would recommend that the board approve of both of these requests.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the construction in the right of way.
Motion by Wactor. Second
Second.
by Knapp. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Stecker, are they in your area?
He
I
said
take that as yes.
Yeah.
Motion carried unanimous. Discussion with county.
We do have one other, BevCom of Blue Earth, Minnesota. They have requested to plow communication cable on 140th Avenue from Pedestal, on A16 and then north to Minnesota. It's a little bit short of a mile, but again, I would recommend that the board would approve of this request as well.
So we're approving Minnesota too,
This would be just getting it into Minnesota.
I'll make a motion to approve BevCom's permit. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Wactor. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Mr. Stecker? Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, Josh.
Okay, we need some signatures here, Roger, quick. Right, don't have them marked out. Where they go, sorry. I think you know where that is.
We're in no hurry.
There's that one. And there's that one, thank you.
Thanks. Doug.
Thank you.
We didn't have this one,
Yeah, we did.
appoint planning and zoning commissioner.
2.2.
Okay.
We did.
Okay. Construction in the right of way, we did,
Just completed.
and now we're up, anything else with the county, our zoning?
We are, right now, still searching for a mechanic at our mechanic shop. We had a loader go down, yesterday afternoon. It's on a trailer, last I heard, at our mechanic shop, something, I think a transmission, hopefully just a coolant hose, went out on that, but I haven't heard, since, so what the status of that is, I do not know. Gravel roads, right now, we're watching them. Whenever there's heavy traffic, we do end up seeing, some damage, and we're trying to repair it accordingly. It's one of those things where, sometimes we do a little bit more harm than good if we go out and repair those, but, if people, go out when the ground is frozen in the morning, early morning, let it freeze overnight, that seems to help. But we are trying to keep up on that. Planning and zoning, we got the new members now. We do have a, meeting of Planning and Zoning Commission, February 27th at 5 o'clock, to review and evaluate the proposed amendment to the Kossuth County ordinance. I do have some notices, if anyone would like them, I'll just leave them right here. I'll email that to you, Jim.
Okay, thanks.
And we still do need one more person for Board of Adjustment. Kossuth Waste Management Association, we are having that meeting, that is March 1, Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So that's a little bit of a summary of where we're at right now, so.
Any prospects for the Board of Adjustment?
I do not.
We got a whole bunch of people sitting in here, maybe one of them volunteered to be on the Board of Adjustment.
I don't see any hands.
I don't see any hands, no. I didn't really plan on it. Anything else, Doug?
I do not have anything else.
Any questions from the board for Doug? If not, thank you very much, Doug.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug.
We are up to Summit. And Steve, are you here today? You're the one that, or who's the spokesperson? You're gonna do it today.
Did somebody tell you about county on the phone for this?
No.
Do you have enough seats?
Did you highlight it from, anybody asking to be,
So, and Cal can kind of speak to this, we do have another person on, Dan,
on Zoom?
on the team's meeting, so.
Okay.
Okay, so you have two people on Teams meeting.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to talk loud enough so they can hear you off the owl.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll do my best. Just let me know if y'all can't hear me.
Okay.
Alright, here we go. Okay. So these are just a few handouts we have for you guys. One of them you probably, or actually two of them you've seen before. One of them's a map, and then the other one is the Iowa state handout that I believe I handed out last time we were here, so it just has a little bit more information, and then there's a new one that we'll go over today. So,
Would you introduce yourself?
yes,
And who's ever sitting next to you, if they're gonna speak, please introduce them.
Yes, so I'll start by reintroducing myself. My name is Kaylee Langrell. I work for Turnkey Logistics. We are contracted by Summit Carbon Solutions primarily to do non-environmental permitting. My primary job, however, is going around to county boards, giving informational presentations, answering questions. So with me today, I have Kylie Lang. She is the project manager, or one of the project managers in Iowa. So if there's questions later, great resource. We also have Rod Dillon. He is our director of regulatory compliance, also another great resource. And then Corey Collette, he is our EHS manager. So a lot of great people here to, help answer some questions. So really what I want to do today is just, first of all, go over this new handout we have. So the one with the map on the bottom. And then I'll give you guys just a brief project update like I normally do. So we'll kind of start from the top. I'm just going to go through these regulations one by one down the list, and then we'll talk about this map. So number one, just want to touch on that Summit Carbon Solutions is regulated by PHMSA, and that's a part of the DOT. Number two, this is all of the rest of these are regulations that we're required to follow. So just going to run through those and tell you how Summit Carbon Solutions is planning to follow those. So new pipe, it must be made of carbon steel, low alloy, high strength. This is exactly what Summit Carbon Solutions is going to be using, and it will be US manufactured steel. Moving on to number three, public awareness. I really wanted to make sure we added this one in because I feel like public awareness is a big topic, and PHMSA does actually have an entire section of regulations dedicated to public awareness, and this is just one small piece of it. But basically, we must have a program that specifically includes provisions to educate the public, appropriate government organizations, and public engagement excavation. So basically, when we're talking about excavation, we want people to call 911. We come out, or 911, 811. We come out and do a locate. And then, this far we've had over 1,700 meetings with different organizations. We've had open houses, landowner meetings, and then included in that are the quarterly updates that we're trying to give to counties, just like this one. So, but again, that's one tiny section of the public awareness portion. So if you want to, you can definitely go look up the CFR 195 and kind of look through it for yourself. Number four, clearance between pipe and underground structures. So PHMSA requires that we have a 12-inch clearance. Our best practice is going to be 24 inches. So that doesn't mean that we'll be 24 inches with every other entity underground, but that means that's what we're going to try to do. So you have, for sure, 12 inches because that's what's required, and then the 24 inches is what we hope for. Number five, inspection of right-of-way and crossings under navigable waters. Each operator shall, at intervals not exceeding 3 weeks, but at least 26 times each calendar year, inspect the conditions of the pipeline right-of-way. So our standard practice is going to be flying the line with a plane, not a drone, to visually inspect the pipeline right-of-way to see if, for instance, if any of the pipe is exposed or if someone's building on it, so we can go out and kind of handle that beforehand. Number six, assessment intervals. So every 5 years, not to exceed 6 to 8 months, we have to assess the pipeline's integrity. So what we will plan to do here is use an inline inspection tool. There's launch and receiver sites, so that's where we would put the tool in, and it will check for different things like dents, corrosion. I think it can even check for if there's depth of cover loss at this point. So it's a very sophisticated tool that we'll use to run through the line. And then the transmission line valves. So we have to have those. I know we've talked about the valves before, but we will have them no more than 20 miles apart on the line. You can see, I've provided a map for you guys, but they are the little red ribbons shown on the map. So that's where our block valves will be. And basically, if there's any kind of temperature or pressure change, those lock valves will shut instantaneously. And then, we will be notified, and handle the situation. And then lastly, just to touch on this map, we wanted to add this just to kind of show, an example of how pipelines do not deter growth to communities. They actually do the opposite. Houston, Texas is a great example. According to the US Census, it is the 4th most populated city in the US. They've really embraced becoming an energy hub. So it's brought lots of wealth, jobs, and people to the community. So this map really just speaks to that because you can see all the pipelines that are running through it. But that's something we kind of wanted to show you guys as an example of how it brings jobs and growth to the community. So with that, I will give you guys just a brief project update. So at this point in Iowa, we are at 2/3 of easement miles acquired in the state. And then as far as permits, I know Doug is working with our Doug, the relationship manager for this county is working with your county engineer. And then as far as construction date, we do have that scheduled for 2024. So that is a change.
You won't start until 2024 any place?
That's what we're looking at. We have to have our IUB permit, so no construction will start until we have all of our permits, including the IUB permit.
This says August 2023.
That needs to be changed.
Oh,
Let me take that. It's a recent change.
Yes.
We're still finalizing new construction dates based on all of our state permit hearings. There's a chance we do pre-construction work at the end of 23, but the bulk of construction for Iowa will be in 24.
You're not gonna do any
Which
digging
quarter,
on,
24?
you're not gonna do any digging until you get an okay from the IUB to use
Yes.
eminent domain, I'm assuming?
We can't do any work until we have approval from IUB.
Okay,
They give us the right to start construction. That's one of their permits.
Dan had a question, which quarter of 2024, do you guys know that?
I don't wanna lock that down. I mean, we just got the updated permit information late last week. So we, as the engineering team, are still rebuilding the schedule.
Okay.
But within a couple weeks, we'll know it.
I guess my first comment is, as supervisors, our number 1 job is safety, our number 2 job is safety, and our number 3 job is safety for the public. I don't know how comfortable everybody else is here with how it's went so far, but we haven't heard a lot about the safety factor, other than what you've said so far. We have to assure the public that if we okay this, or if we don't try and stop it, that we're doing enough to provide safety to the public.
Are there any specific questions that we can answer for you guys that I haven't?
Well, right now, you got a line going right next to a town of Irvington.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead. The block valves.
Yeah, so if you kind of look at the map.
Right.
We initially start with, we put valves every 20 miles, that's regulation. And then we do a full engineering analysis based on high population areas, based on large navigable waterways, highly trafficked railroads, various things like that. And bring in that 20 miles depending on the engineering study. So when we go closer to a city like we are here, we brought those valves in pretty significantly to block in the city. To allow, she mentioned, in the unlikely chance of a pressure or temperature loss, we have the ability to block in the city. So that's done. It's based on PHMSA regulation, the studies that we completed, and that's the first, step of safety that we do on the project. And then what we do is preventative. Kaylee mentioned the flyover, where every 3 weeks, I think it's required, maybe 2, we'll fly the line. That is like step 15 in the safety plan. What we actually use that for is if someone chose not to call 811 and we see them digging and we're gonna go over and be like, hey, let's make sure you're not on top of a pipeline conversation. What we do on the front end first, PHMSA requires us to inspect 10% of all welds that are completed on the project. We're gonna go and inspect 100% of the welds on the pipeline before it's ever put in the ground. After the pipeline's put in the ground, it's filled back in, we are going to fill the system up segment by segment with water to at least 125% of maximum operating pressure. So this is gonna tell us if there's a failure point, it's gonna fail with the water. We're gonna know at that point. Another step that we did a lateral migration analysis, which was completely optional at every navigable waterway, telling us, do we have incompetent soil? Do we have potential for aggressive erosion in a major rainstorm? Things like that could potentially expose our pipe. And what we did in those situations, in most cases, we moved the bore boxes back, extending the drill, which extends the depth of the drill overall. So that was a study we recently completed a couple weeks ago, made some major changes to our waterways and on the safety side. So this all happens before product ever goes in the system. All of these safety steps take place. Once product is in the system, she mentioned an inline inspection tool. We will run it on every segment that's what we call piggable, terrible phrase, that we can run the tool through. And the other section will continue the hydro test process that we fill with water. But we run the tool and it's smart enough to tell us at exact GPS locations if we have any internal corrosion. It's gonna tell us if we have any external corrosion by total loss of pipe. It's gonna tell us if we have any dents on the exterior of the pipe. It's gonna tell us if we're losing depth of cover in specific areas. So this is used all preventative, long before, and no one ever even knows we're running these tools. And it will tell us in situations. I actually spent a couple of years just working on the integrity side of pipeline management, and you get, immediate reactions, not on newer pipes often. And then you have 30 days and 90 days, and it's all regulated on when you have to go and react based on metal loss. We've also made the decision, we've gone with heavier wall pipe in a lot of situations. If you've heard the term fracture propagation, based on engineering studies, we've just gone with stronger, heavier pipe to prevent any risk of fracture propagation in other situations. We use crack arresters, and all of that engineering has been done on the front side. Most of what we're doing, although we are going above and beyond with lateral migration and various things like that, is laid out very specifically in the pipeline hazardous material safety data, DOT 195. And we're following that. We'll be audited throughout the construction process by PHMSA. We have Rod here today who can speak on that more than I can. But there's a lot going in, and the millions of miles of pipeline in the country that run safely, that more than 99.999% of the product put in a pipeline gets to its end location, which you can't say in any other means of traffic or means of transportation, shows that the regulations that are being followed are, strenuous and tested, and we've put a lot into the safety side.
Well, I'm gonna say a lot of the pipelines that run through the United States are natural gas, anhydrous, and oil, and things like that have a smell. We are dealing with an odorless killer. So shouldn't our regulations be more stringent than what the federal government is right now?
Odor is one piece, but what we aren't is flammable, and what we aren't is explosive. And to me, and you can argue, it's an asphyxiant, and we take that incredibly seriously, but so is natural gas. So is a lot of other liquids or gases that run through pipelines. We only talk that it's an asphyxiant because that is the only major risk to CO2.
Can I say something quick?
Yeah.
You give us a map of Houston. My wife grew up in Houston, so I've been down there a few times, but it's oil and gas industry, energy industry everywhere there, and it's not like it's a city full of CO2 pipelines running into the city. So, you know, it's like comparing and saying, you know, so-and-so has a solar farm in the Arizona desert, therefore it should work in northern Iowa. It's just comparing apples to oranges. I don't think it's a fair assumption that, you know, because Houston's full of underground pipelines, that therefore we should have one too.
I guess I'll take that two-side, right? One, the design and engineering of a pipeline, no matter what's inside of it, other than very specific technical changes, is the same, right? We use the same workers, we use the same well standards.
It's a different substance though.
It's a different substance. To say like if a major natural gas leaked in downtown Houston, it wouldn't be incredibly concerning, would be a wild statement.
Concerning, but it wouldn't be spreading through the air as an odorless vapor.
It would spread through the air.
It would. It would not
spread through the
kill.
air.
It would not kill in the same way that, or harm in the same way that a CO2 line would.
I disagree with that statement. Brad, I don't know if you want to speak on.
I can kind of speak to that because recently we were having some road construction done close to my house here in town, and there was an incident where one of the natural gas lines got hit, and it spread an odor so fast that the sheriff, police, everybody was called. The schools were evacuated that were nearby, and we had the utility companies, 10-15 trucks on site within, 15 minutes of it happening. That's, and that odor told us that, something was wrong. And we were able to contact all those people before any injuries or anything happened. This is an odorless gas, which you won't know is gonna, something happened or something got hit until people start hitting the ground.
So what's different? Oh, Brad, you want to take it?
Our SCADA system on the pipeline system will tell us if there's a release.
What happens if that fails?
And we'll shut it down.
What happens if that fails though? There's lots of failures in technology.
There's meteors gonna hit the earth too. That could happen. What if it fails? It's not gonna fail. We're not gonna let it fail. We've got backup systems for the SCADA system. I can bring in a SCADA report for you and give it to you on how our systems work. They work all around the country right now, and they haven't failed. They have backups, they have battery backups. I don't know what you mean by fail. Our meters work, we're gonna have meters along the system, the instruments, baseline instruments to go back to SCADA to tell us if there's levels in the atmosphere above background. And we'll know when there's a release based on our flow. We know where the flow is going to be released at. We know, like she said, the overflights, the line riders will see people working on the line in the area of the line. We'll shut that down. We'll get 811 calls. We'll make sure that doesn't happen.
To speak specific, I'm not familiar with the natural gas release you mentioned. But if you drove trucks into it, it tells me it wasn't high concentration, correct? It was some type of pinhole leak that created an odor.
I'm not 100% sure on the size of the leak either, but I just know that it created
an odor.
A lot of, and some panic.
A difference between natural gas or most products that are running in pipelines today and CO2. CO2 lives in the air. To become dangerous, it has to be an incredibly, incredibly high concentrations, parts per million in the air. When we're talking the difference between H2S, which is in a lot of products running in pipelines, we're talking it becomes dangerous at 10, 20 ppm. And then we're talking tens of thousands of ppm for CO2 to become dangerous. So a pinhole leak in a pipeline on CO2 is going to be emitting slower than the ethanol plants are emitting CO2 today. Right? It is not dangerous at a pinhole or even larger than a pinhole. The only time CO2 becomes dangerous is in a very unlikely catastrophic failure. Those are not going to go unnoticed by anybody. It's not going to go unnoticed by our systems. It's not going to go unnoticed by the area. So when you compare minor leaks if we didn't repair it, no one would ever even know. So the odorant doesn't matter because CO2 gets emitted into the air all day, every day. As long as it's not major high concentrations. I'm talking way, way higher than natural gas has to be, or any of the chemicals that go into a lot of the products running in pipelines today. They are not comparable in any way. Pinhole leaks don't pose a threat to the community.
That leads me to a question, the end point for this, that's gonna be whatever, tens of millions of whatever pounds or gallons, pumping this into the ground, is that right?
Yeah. At a minimum mile deep, up to 2 miles deep, depending on which well.
That's gonna be huge concentrations of this stuff in the ground. And what do you, it turns to rock or something you said, or it turns solid, how long does that take?
Yeah, it will calcify over time.
How long does it take for that gas
But-
to solidify?
I don't know, I'd have to talk to a geologist. I think our North Dakota team who actually works on the
What
sequestration site
happens if
knows.
there's, somehow that ground opens up and there's a leak in that ground?
I can tell you that North Dakota has done so much study on sequestration. They've put so much money and experts into this, that after 12 years of us blowing proof that we constructed correctly, they're taking 100% of the liability because they have so much confidence in sequestration and the capability of this cap rock to permanently sequester CO2.
And how many years can you pump this stuff into that hole?
I think after 100 years, we'll use less than 10% of our sequestration site at our current flow rate.
But you don't know how long it stays in a gas form in the ground.
Unless Rod knows.
How do you know?
We have a sequestration team that lives up in North Dakota.
And you're talking about super concentration, well, that's gonna be a super concentration of that site.
I have to trust the millions and millions, probably billions of dollars of engineering research that went into it.
We're also told that oil pipelines and gas pipelines are safe, but how many times have we had oil pipelines erupt and gas pipelines explode? And we've seen some pictures of holes in the ground that are big enough to bury a city in, where a gas line exploded. No guarantees that there won't be a leak somewhere along the line. It's probably, I'd say it's not if it's gonna happen, but when it's gonna happen.
I would say the newer the pipeline, the lesser the likelihood, right? We got pipelines that ran from the 30s and the 40s, and they had the best technology at their time, but it's nothing compared to what we have today in terms of engineering standards, as well as, growth in PHMSA and other regulations. But to say anomalies don't happen would be a lie, right? We know that they happen, but in terms of the millions of miles of pipeline, and we hear every once in a while about a release here, there, or everywhere else, it's not common practice. It's an incredibly small percentage of the total amount of miles that run in the country. And we think with the top level technology that we have on with our SCADA system, as well as the preventative engineering studies that we've completed, we are gonna be one of the safest pipelines in the country just because we're built in 2024 and not 1980.
What happens to the landowner payments and things of ethanol, all of a sudden it becomes defunct and we don't use it anymore?
To me,
There's no guarantee that ethanol is gonna be around forever.
I agree, but to me, the pipeline in the ground that's maybe been there for 20 years is nothing in comparison to the 56% of corn sold to the ethanol plants and the problems to the economy that's gonna be created from that. So if this is a step that makes that last longer, I think the pipeline's nothing to losing the sale of ethanol in the state of Iowa.
Is there anything in the easement that says that if ethanol plants close up and that the farmer is guaranteed his money for the next 100 years?
We only get one-time payment.
I don't know how.
It doesn't last forever.
What's your life expectancy of the pipeline?
Pipelines don't actually have life expectancies, assuming we can continue to pass our 5-year inspection. There are pipelines running that are nearly 100 years old, and they weren't built as well as this one
So
is.
you haven't put a year on it?
There's no years.
It's a single-use pipeline, the easement is only for CO2?
One line, only CO2.
Incorrect. The easement specifies that if it's not used for CO2, that it can be sold and put in whatever we want.
Yeah.
So it's not designated only for CO2. And it is a lifetime easement with one payment up front.
I can send the language, but it is strictly, can only carry CO2.
Can you guarantee us that?
Yeah, I can send you the language.
Please, do that.
Yeah, the last time I was here, I did provide a handout and it has the specific language. I can also send that again, but I mean, I'm sure we can get a copy of part of the easement to show you guys that as well. But if you do have the handout that I provided last time, it's in there.
I probably got it somewhere.
Yeah, I know. I know how it goes.
Well, I mean, we've asked a lot of questions. Is there anything from the public? Anybody wanna make a comment or question?
Two things, and I'd like to bring it up to the board, especially while Doug's here. You said you're regulated by PHMSA, correct? So PHMSA's code 195.25 on clearance between pipeline and underground structure says any pipeline installed underground must have at least 12 inches of clearance between the outside of the pipe and the extremity of any other underground structure. Except that for drainage tile, the minimum clearance may be less than 12 inches, but not less than 2 inches.
The IUB regulates it at 12.
But earlier you stated you were
And that is-
regulated by PHMSA.
That's PHMSA.
Sorry, PHMSA does regulate, what did you say, extremity?
Yeah.
Drainage tile. Pipelines. They had an exclusion for drain tile to offset that, the IUB, and we have it submitted in the agricultural impact mitigation plan, has a 12-inch separation.
So that'll be enforced through the IUB if the permit is granted?
Yes, well, the enforcer will technically be the county inspector that's hired by the county. They'll have the agricultural impact mitigation plan, and it's what's been approved by the IUB, and they'll enforce it.
Who pays the county inspector?
We do,
They do.
Our choice,
of the supervisor's choice, yeah,
that's what I meant, our choice, you pay for it.
yes.
The other thing I had when Roger touched on safety, has there been anything done within this county as far as preparing people for safety or educating them for safety? And where will the money come from for the equipment that we would take to respond to a CO2?
Summit Carbon Solutions will fund all that, and we will do all the education of all the first responders. And then, of course, public awareness is part of PHMSA's 440 that we have to deal with for everybody.
How is Summit guaranteeing they're gonna provide electric vehicles and so forth, with the amount of money it would take to staff the county? Because we would have Whittemore, Algona, and Wesley would all be, emergency responders across the county. The amount of equipment it would take to make that available just in Kossuth County.
Yeah, we're
What
going
guarantee
to,
does Summit have for that?
I'm gonna ensure that all first responders have the equipment and training necessary to respond safely to protect the public. And what that means is, we're going to ensure that with the, like, CO2 monitors or O2 monitors that we're going to buy, if they don't have them already, meaning fire departments, sheriff's department, ambulance services, to respond to protect the public, we will buy all of that equipment ourselves and issue it and train them on how to use it. And continual education every 6 months. Or whenever the emergency manager reaches out and says they've hired 4 more people at whatever town and we have to go train them again. And we're not doing regional training like the LAPC has regions for the counties. We're going to each town. I don't think it's right that volunteer firemen need to travel whatever miles to a regional meeting when they're taking a day out of their time to do that. That's just wrong.
Will they be compensated for their training? I mean, a lot of these people are volunteer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think at the present time, the only company around here is Mason City that could actually respond to a CO2 leak, because they're the only ones that have backpacks that are capable of breathing through. Our local fire departments, you'd have to say they couldn't respond.
They won't when we're done. They will when we're done.
You're gonna
Absolutely.
equip them with
Absolutely.
backpacks?
I have to. I can't protect the public without the first responders being
No.
prepared.
Because right now, we have none of that.
That's right.
So you got new vehicles still?
What kind of vehicles? Electric vehicles? We don't have electric fire trucks. I mean, I don't need electric fire trucks. All we're doing, is, what we're going to do is do an initial response tactic for every mile of the pipeline on each wind direction. That's part of the training I'm going to establish with all first responders. We will sit down with our dispersion modeling, look at which way the wind would blow product and what the dispersion of it is, so many feet. It goes to about 250, 300 feet, whatever it needs to be, to get back down to 5,000 parts per million, which is OSHA's PEL, permissible exposure limit. And we will figure out what roads we need to block off with the sheriff's department, and who downwind needs to be dealt with will be part of the initial response tactical document that we're going to issue to each first responder in their trucks with their meters. And so basically we'll have a command post set up, already stationary beside it for every mile. And when our operations folks meet the first responders there, we'll do a monitor around the area to determine our hot zone. At that point, determines where we have to go from there with it. But there's nobody gonna enter the hot zone with a fire truck. There's no reason to, there's no fire.
What if there's people in that zone and they need to get out of there?
And that's what they'll do.
They can't run a fuel-powered vehicle in there. They need an electric vehicle to get in there to get them out of there. Who's gonna furnish that electric vehicle?
We'll take care of that. We will address that, sir. There's not gonna be an area where there's gonna be a person in it unless they're on a tractor digging a hole.
People live out here in the country close to that pipeline.
They're not within the pipeline.
That thing leaks before they know it's leaking. Who's gonna get in there to get them out of there before they die?
They're not within the 50,000 parts per million.
So the answer to my question.
We've already addressed that.
How will you guarantee the people of the county that you're gonna provide the equipment and the training? What is some saying, I mean, how are you gonna guarantee it? I mean, we could talk all day long, I can tell you I got a winning Powerball ticket in my pocket. Where's the guarantee that it's gonna take place?
And it's my understanding,
saying we're doing
after
it.
the pipe's in the ground is when you plan to do
Sir?
the training. It's my understanding that after the pipe's in the ground is when you plan to.
Absolutely not.
Wow, I haven't seen.
That's not what the emergency manager and I talked about. We talked about, once we get our permits, once we start, so we can start scheduling, once we get our permits, once construction starts, we will start doing the training. We'll do the training for all first responders, we'll do the training for all operations of Summit, we'll do a tabletop exercise with both groups before product gets pushed in the line. We can't not do that, that's PHMSA regulations. I can't allow our product to be transported without everybody being educated to respond, or be prepared to respond to anything. This is law. I mean, I can't not do it that way.
I want to see it.
That's, okay, I'm saying it, it's gonna happen.
So the pipeline's 3/4 mile north of my house. I live in Irvington, the town that's going by. So it pops.
Right.
1 o'clock tonight, it pops. You guys don't catch it right away. And you said, we're all gonna be out of our houses. What's my phone number? How the hell are you gonna call me and let me know that the pipe, the gas is coming from my house?
It's not gonna go 3/4 mile, but I understand your concern. We do have,
It won't go
the system-
3/4 mile. We got
it
a
will
hog
not.
site that's contaminated a
It will
mile
not.
west of my house, and I can smell it outside my house. So don't tell me it doesn't go that far. And I live on top of a hill.
I know the science, the CO2 will not drift 3/4 mile at 50,000 parts per million.
Okay, Shane's got timber. He's got 2 guys out there turkey hunting, line breaks. You don't know they're out there.
That's true.
So you can't say people are out to be all safe. They're not gonna be.
Okay. That's,
All I gotta say is if you wanna keep talking, why don't you build your house beside the thing?
There you
I was already there.
okay.
And what about that valve spacing you were talking about? 20 miles, is that correct?
That's max allowable, yeah.
Max allowable?
Yeah.
Well, we've got roughly 26, 27 miles across Kossuth County. And since you mentioned Irvington, you have a navigable river, you have a railroad crossing, plus you've got that community right there. So you've got.
We got an hydro plant there.
And an anhydrous plant there as well.
So I can give you one of these maps too. To look at.
I'm just saying that just Irvington alone in itself creates a very, I don't know what's the word I want to find here, hazardous situation, yeah. I mean,
And also, if you wanna look downstream, Dakota City, the last time I spoke to them, I believe it's been over a year ago, they spend between $900 and $1,200 a month to have their discharge water put back into the West Fork of Des Moines, or East Fork of Des Moines River, because Des Moines uses it as a potable drinking water source. And if your pipe runs right underneath the river and it leaks, and it's gonna go downstream to Dakota City. I'm just saying, there's all sorts of scenarios that can come up just one area, let alone the 26 or however many miles across Kossuth County we're talking about. And the homes, I mean, 300 feet from a house, really?
You got 300, you got 300, right?
Yeah, right from the bedroom. So 16 inches.
What do you gotta do?
Did you build your house there? Did you build a house there?
I wouldn't. We have Summit Carbon Solutions employees who are on the line. We go through some of the agricultural land that they obviously work. We're not scared of this pipeline.
There's some guy I heard talking the last time I was here 3 weeks ago or so. There's a couple guys here talking, and the guy from Sway City said he had some advisor come up there and was talking about the pipeline up there for the Navigator line. And he had all the facts and said you can't put a pipeline through Iowa without it busting because of the freeze and thaw. So are you going 6, 7, 8 foot deep? How deep are you going? Do you go 4 foot deep? That's our tile lines.
We will go below tile, but the minimum is 4, depending on the area. If there's tile in the ground, we'll go lower. And high strength carbon steel is significantly less susceptible to freeze thaw than, say, a water line or the lines that often run through here. It's not the same, it's not comparable. We have considered freeze thaw. It was put into the engineering report, and we've mitigated through different tactics.
Yeah, but up on the ridge where you're putting this line, I farmed 6 farms, and where you're putting the line through my one farm up there, I call that Rock Haven. And them rocks, they just keep coming up because of frost. And you got your line on top of that rock. What's that line doing? It's going this. You're going right through, that's where the glacier quit. That's where it dumped all its rocks. If you guys did your homework, that's what we call the ridge. All the rocks are there. That line's gonna break.
When we come across a rock through construction, we'll take it out, won't put it back in, we'll move it offsite.
We can be picking them up, because I pick rocks up every year.
But there's rock shield, there's engineering mitigations that we can put in place when we see it during construction. We'll react, do rock shield, do whatever we need to do to prevent that. We also have coating on the pipe that will, fight off any type of small things. This isn't pipe that's just gonna bend. It's not, we're talking thick pipe with coating designed to take hits on top of that thick pipe. And if it really becomes a problem, we'll see it with our inline inspection, and we'll go and we'll mitigate as needed with the rock shield and other various engineering tactics should stop that.
If that pipe's so tough and won't break, how come when a little dirt fell below El Mississippi, the line blew and broke? If it's so damn tough.
A little dirt fell below it?
The water, it rained 7 or 13 inches, undermined the pipe went like this, and it hit the town.
There's a lot
Can't
of
remember the name
things
of the town, but it's in
that,
Mississippi.
there's a lot of things that went wrong there. First, exposed pipe. They knew it was exposed, they didn't react to it. That's the main reason we decided to do the lateral migration study. We said, hey, if we had a 100-year storm, something like Satartia, Mississippi had, will this pipe stay underground? And that's why we extended a lot of our bores in areas that had incompetent soil, like they had. They also ran it at a lateral that isn't uncommon in the industry, but you need to check the soil to make sure it's strong enough to withstand that, which we're doing through technical studies. So that was their first mistake by not realizing they had incompetent soil. They then allowed the pipe to become exposed. Fine, it happens. The moment it's exposed, you need to go and do something about it, and they didn't. It was exposed for several days. At that point, it's now cantilever, and that takes a totally different stress pressure than an underground pipeline. It's not built to have XYZ stresses coming in every direction, it's just not how it's designed. It did have a worst case rupture at a weld seam because it was cantilevered. And the reaction time to Satartia, Mississippi was bad. PHMSA finding them pretty heavily shows that they made quite a few mistakes. It's not standard practice, but it also happened in a worst case situation. It was cold outside. They closed their valves slowly. They didn't react with emergency responses. It's like their SCADA system didn't fail. Their process, their internal process failed. That's not something this is an anomaly in the pipeline industry, and it's not standard, and that's why they were fined for it. And then in the same side, it was also carrying H2S and various other toxins that our pipeline will not be carrying, will be more than 99% CO2. The other ones are other inert gases like nitrogen, at less than 1% by mole. And that is, like I mentioned earlier, H2S, 10 to 20 ppm and you're in a danger zone versus tens of thousands ppm in CO2 before you enter into a danger zone. So that's a huge difference that needs to be noted when we talk about Satartia, Mississippi. But also that not only did they make mistakes, was it a really bad day, there was only one OSHA recordable with no fatalities. And I believe if we were talking natural gas, those stats would not be the same. So we've done a lot to prevent what happened there from happening on our pipeline. So we've learned from their mistakes, but also their mistakes don't mark industry standard.
How deep or how far, you gonna bore, or how far are you going below our county tile?
We'll be at least, by regulation, a foot below. Standard practice, we're gonna have the contractors do 24 inches, they end up 22.
Not dig, right, bore?
We told them.
Sorry, county tile. We'll work individually with each one.
Yeah.
We'll get a permit for each tile that we cross.
We met with your construction people before. I told them the only way they can go is if they bore underneath our county tile. We're not gonna accept them digging through it.
Because it'll settle.
They're too old. Anytime you dig through a 100-year-old structure, you do damage to it.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be bored. We're gonna pothole them before you come.
Yeah, I think you talked to Brent Neese.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through pipeline through Kossuth County, which is Carter's area now, is my area, you got 750 miles of county tile. That's a lot of crossings.
What we did is we did the best layover that we could get based on public data, based on different companies in the area that had information, and we did the best thing. We did a GIS overlay of your county tile system, and that's when we came to a meeting, and then we're gonna pothole and find the remaining, or, if it's in a 100-foot easement, we don't know exactly where it's at, that type of thing. So we're gonna directly locate it in advance, and if the process is required for it.
But you come to a dredge, because we got a lot of dredges down in my area. We got creeks, but then we got dredges, and the dredges are deep. Are you gonna slope way back and bore down and come out and be like 4 or 5 feet below the water line? Because if they dip that dredge out, they're gonna hit the line.
That is exactly what we do.
You'll bore underneath of that.
I can't speak, I don't know specific one you're talking about, but if it's ran by the county, we'll come to an agreement on best practice. But in a lot of situations, yeah, if it's deep, we just extend the bore length to get deeper.
Now, when you're crossing creeks, you gotta get permission from, says, we got Topeka shiners around here, so they're trying to protect them.
So
You
there's
hold the
the
DNR then, or what do you do there?
The DNR, we have to permit any river that's ran through the DNR, we permitted through the DNR. Then there's also large rivers, there's not any in this county that are permitted by the Army Corps, so.
Yeah, you hold Boone Valley watershed then too?
They'll have to.
They'll have to? Who's on that now, Carter?
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah,
all
that's more of our
gonna
environmental
be, this is all gonna be sections of pipe welded together, is that right?
Yeah.
You said the pipe wouldn't bend.
Most of us are farmers in this room, or have farmed, and, I think every one of us can say we've all seen welded metal that's broke many a times. I've welded a lot of pieces of farm equipment. how can you say that those welded joints aren't gonna be as strong? Maybe the pipe is fine, but you can't tell me that that welded joist can be 100% safe.
That is why we hydro test before going to service. We put it, 25% higher than the pressure we'll ever see. If there's a weak point, that's when we're gonna find it.
You do that before you cover it up.
It's after you cover up before you go into service.
Oh, yeah. So you can't see it.
Well, you're required to hold pressure for 8 hours. So if you lose pressure in any situation, you have to find out why.
I don't know if you can do like 100 yards, put a machine on each side, pressurize the heck out of it, and then go again and go again.
We do it in 20 to 25 mile segments of water to pressurize. We will pre-hydro test any major river, any major HDD. Any HDD that we do, the pipe will be pre-hydro tested. So it'll have to be hydro tested twice, because obviously it'll be in service during the hydro test.
You said this pipe won't bend, correct?
It's not on its own.
Okay, well, the last time I spoke with a person, you can bend this, and I've seen the machinery.
Yeah, you can engineer bend it.
Yeah.
You can design it bend.
And that causes a lot of stress.
Not if you do it correctly, which is why we engineer design it.
Word.
And that's also why the bends often come at drills, right? If it goes deep down and then come back up. That's why we pre-hydro test post bend before we ever put the pipe in the ground. So it'll be hydro tested before it gets put in the ground and then re-hydro tested with the rest of the system. So that's because of that engineered bend.
Who's gonna be the manufacturer of your pipe?
We're using various different mills across the country, depending on the size of the pipe, from American to Wellspun, but it's 100% American steel.
You're saying that, going back to what, I forget your name, but, what you had mentioned that the CO2 won't travel 3/4 of a mile. Do you have studies that prove that?
Dispersion modeling, yes.
Could you send those to us?
I cannot.
You have plume studies and.
We are developing our dispersions for every mile of the pipeline at this time.
But didn't you tell us that they had a 8-inch line that they threw 2,200 PSI in it and ruptured it on purpose, and it went 1,400 feet in 4 minutes? So half the mile is double that.
It didn't maintain 50,000 parts per million at 1,000 feet, actually, is what you're talking about.
I have that study if you want to go through it after this.
It did not maintain over 5,000 parts per million.
I actually have it printed out in my bag, but I only have one copy in my hand, so if you wanna talk about it after, we can.
Is there a reason we don't have access to these studies, being that it's?
So in a situation, like you can't go to Google and say where are the pipelines in this country, right? There's no way for people to find where the pipelines are in an exact way unless you purchase what we call Rex tag. And still that's not exact. And the reason behind that is it's at the US Department of Security level. And if we said, here's our exact pipeline location and here's our dispersion analysis, we are now giving all of that information to anyone publicly that wants it. And maybe it's good when we have these conversations, and it would be great for us to be able to do that. But US Security says, let's not put that much data out there in the world. But there are test studies, like you mentioned, of dispersion analyses that are public because they're small and they're not related to one actual functioning pipeline. And I think that's gonna be, it's still CO2, it's still pressured up to the same thing, it's just not specifically ours. And I think that's a good data to start with.
So I have a question for you. Why is that information not directly released to the landowner where the pipe is going through the ground? There is absolutely no, if you guys wanna talk about transparency, that information should be released to the landowner where your pipe runs.
I can only speak to, the IUB had a ruling last week, I don't know if you guys were aware that even they felt they didn't need it, that it, was pretty lock and key information that we're gonna keep at, federal, we're gonna keep with the emergency managers, which he's gonna take that study, he's gonna design it and train the emergency responders with the information that we do have, he's still developing it, it's not complete.
But don't you understand what's wrong with that? That'd be like me coming to your house and running any structure of whatever, and nope, I'm not gonna give you any information about that entity. You're not entitled, you don't have a right. even though you own it.
There are a lot of public information.
I'm
about
talking about
CO2.
your pipeline specifically. If you guys got this, if you guys have this information, why not be transparent, give it to the landowner? What's wrong with that?
Rod, maybe you know more details
No, just
as
what you
to
said,
the-
that's the only reason.
That would be thousands and thousands of people who then have the information that the US security
Well,
system
you're
would
impacting
have.
thousands of people with your pipeline. You can't deny that, you are.
I'm not denying that we are, and I'm willing to have individual conversations, we can look at your property and talk about it, I can show you the studies of third party, which honestly, most of you guys would probably trust more than the study we give you guys. And it will extrapolate similar, without, giving the whole world information about this pipeline.
Jack, you had asked about the easement, so I pulled it up here, and this is exactly written from my land agent that sent the easement to me, and it says in number 7, assignment, it says company, which is Summit Carbon, shall have the right to sell, assign, apportion, mortgage, or lease this agreement as amended from time to time, and the easements granted under it in whole or in part to one or more parties, and company shall be released from its obligations under this agreement to the extent of such sale, assignment, apportionment, or lease, provided that any such purchaser, assignee, apportionee, or leasee assumes company's obligations. The pipeline easement and access easement shall be permanent, and the easement shall, and provisions of this agreement, including all benefits and burdens, shall run with the land. So it is permanent, it can be sold, it does not specify carbon dioxide anywhere in this easement.
It specifies it in a different section, I wish I knew the easement well enough to tell you which section, but it's just not my side of the business. If we want, I can get that information, I can't tell you like section 8, I don't know. Cause, I'm the pipeline engineer, I don't go out and talk to landowners all that often. But I can get to people that do and get that information.
So what do you, we all know that when you weld metal, wherever it's welded, that becomes a very corrosive section of that metal. What do you do to keep that from, that welded area from corroding faster than the rest of the pipe?
So we coat it, so the whole pipeline will be coated, even the welded areas. We also put what are called sacrificial anodes in the ground. Basically they corrode faster than high strength carbon steel. So you stick them in the ground and corrosion sucks up at the anode rather than on the pipeline. In other situations, we use a rectifier switching AC to DC power and we run it across the system, basically electrifying and preventing corrosion basically from street to street. So we have the sacrificial anodes and we also have a current that will run through preventing corrosion. And then we have the coating that is put on the pipe before it goes in service.
How do you coat the inside?
We don't coat the inside. CO2 is a non-corrosive inert gas. That might be the wrong word. Is that right?
Well, like I say, guys, it's contact your state representatives, share all these opinions to them.
You're gonna have 2 new members on the board, probably, in a couple of months. Utility board. Josh Burns is probably the only one that's staying. So if you wanna reach out to your governor, talk to her.
Rich, we're kind of living in exciting times in some ways. And there's a ethanol plant in Illinois that's going to do in-house. And so they won't even need pipelines and such to. So I would encourage the board just to hang back and see some of these things coming alive. We're almost, it seems like dang near daily they're coming out with new technologies. So why do we need to take land? Why do we need to endanger people? Why do you talked about North Dakota, they don't even know about earthquakes. So, and here in Illinois, the one county simply will not let Navigator come in. They will not be storing them. So I think I would encourage, as we go forward here, especially a situation like that, where they can do it right in-house with payback within a year, it looks like. So let's not get stuck on this, geez, if we don't do this, things are going to hell in the handbasket. You know, you keep hearing this, we buy 56%, 1/3 of that goes to feed. Why don't we ever just say, a third of that, no matter what, that stuff's going to feed. So I would encourage just to sit back and say, you know what, as these things come on, maybe this is a bad idea. And I guess I would ask you people, yes, you, listen, if we could do this without having a pipeline, we could save endangering people. And we can do this, would you be willing to do it, or is this all about the tax credits going up there? I think we have to be honest with each other.
If you, so, a couple answers.
All right.
Illinois has the geology to do it. It's why Navigator's going to Illinois. North Dakota has the geology to do it. That's why we're going to North Dakota. Iowa does not, in most of its locations, have the geology. Even in the small portions of Iowa that has good but not great geology, it is not regulated by the state like it is in Illinois and North Dakota. So it's not an option. If it was an option, if there was phenomenal geology underneath these ethanol plants, absolutely, that's what they want to do. The tax credit would be the same if they stored it underground in Iowa, or if they stored it underground in North Dakota. There's no difference. But it's not an option because of natural geology, and it's not an option because of state regulations.
But you're dodging my question. Can you let these people know and say, if we don't need pipelines as this comes on, then let's not do it? Because you admit there's dangers.
I would say, the most important, the ethanol plants wouldn't do it, and we can only do it because the ethanol plant, they had an option, an easier, cheaper, doable, gonna function, get in service, capable option. Why would the ethanol plants not take that?
Because the technology is coming on, correct?
Sorry?
The technology is coming on. This started over a year ago, a year and a half ago that we had these meetings, so you don't think anything's happened in that year and a half that's changing things?
I mean, I do think things are happening. I don't think it changed the geology of Iowa.
I was told in a meeting about a year and a half ago at KC, growing up, there's an old boy from Westerville there, and he did his research. He says you take the CO2 that you're putting in that pipeline, run it through the ethanol plant again, you can get a certain more percentage of ethanol, and what's left over, poof, our corn will suck it up. You don't need this pipeline. Just recycle it again, is what he was claiming. And he did his homework.
I truly believe, and I've talked with the ethanol plants, they did their homework. They have done everything. They've actually, for a lot of years, had a lot of success lowering their carbon intensity score, but they bottomed out. They did the best that they could. They've put a lot into research. They put a lot into what can we do to lower our carbon intensity score to allow us to remain a viable future, to sit at the table with electric cars. Like, what can we do? And I don't think this wasn't just, oh yeah, let's do this, it's easy.
You from Iowa?
I'm from Ohio, and we've got a lot of corn and ethanol.
So you come around here, we're probably 90% corn and beans around here.
So,
And it's sucking all that ethanol out of the air. It ain't hurting us. Otherwise, we'd been dead years ago. Because the only reason it can be that they're pumping it out there is because they're gonna use it for fracking, so the oil company get more oil.
that's not correct. We are not going to use it for fracking. The ethanol plants wouldn't benefit, so why would they do the
Then why's the
commercial
big oil
agreement
company
with
throwing
us?
all the millions at you?
Sorry?
Why is the big oil company throwing millions at it?
Because I think they need carbon credits.
Well, they need the oil to come up so they can sell
No, I disagree with the millions, close to $1 billion we're spending on the sequestration side, a huge waste of money. The ethanol plants need their carbon intensity score to drop to be able to compete in the low carbon fuel markets. If you think global warming is horrible or a scam, it doesn't matter, because federal, global regulation says you have to be carbonized or you can't compete. And the ethanol plants are feeling that pressure, and that's why they're doing this.
If ethanol wasn't subsidized, it wouldn't be able to compete at all.
I can't speak to ethanol plants. I've never worked at one. I've never looked at the financials of one.
There's no reason for it. Pipeline is so they can collect that 45Q at $85 a ton.
As well as selling into the low carbon fuel markets.
Well, wait, you said I thought someone was supposed to sequester this, you can't sell it.
They're selling ethanol into the low carbon fuel markets.
Yeah.
That's actually their main game of working with us, is the low carbon fuel markets.
You about done, Casey? Are you? We're not going anywhere now. So I think we can dispense with this until you come back again sometime and give us a little more information on my main subject, safety, is what I'm concerned about. And I think the taxpayers in the county are. I've never seen an easement agreement, you know, and where he was talking that they could sell it. That's new information to me. I'm assuming that this easement couldn't be sold. I'd like proof on that.
I guess let's clarify, so the pipeline runs with the land. If the landowner moves, everything that landowner negotiated goes to the new owner of that house.
Correct.
We sell the pipeline, everything that landowner negotiated, everything in that easement goes with the pipeline in the exact same way. And in that easement, it says we can only do one single line. You hear, natural gas off the dual lane. We can't dual lane, we can run one line, and it has to carry CO2.
Okay.
And it's for eternity.
Yes.
Eternity, forever.
It is forever.
We can get you the specific language though, I'll
Yeah.
make sure that we get that.
But as a board, we've not been privy to any easements that you've gotten, so we don't know what the landowner's signing. So with that, I think we're gonna take a break. We've been sitting here long enough. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming.